Hey guys, welcome back to Record-ology. What is better than chips and salsa? Nothing, actually. However, what we're doing today is a close second. We are reviewing the Crosley Cruiser, 3rd generation. This one has some interesting punches. We're going to review it, we are going to test it out, we're going to talk about it, including some of its myths and mysteries, and we're going to tear it down. You're not going to want to miss this. Welcome to Record-ology! Okay, stop for a second. I want you right now, stop this video, or actually I don't think you have to stop it, just scroll down and give me a thumbs up if you like Crosley Cruisers. If you hate Crosley Cruisers, give me a thumbs down. Let's vote right now. My only ask to you is that you change your vote should you change your mind. So thumbs up, you love cruisers. Thumbs down, you can't stand the Crosley Cruiser. All right, guys, we are taking a look at this bad boy today. This is indeed the infamous, the legendary Crosley Cruiser. And this is the 3rd generation. This is brand new, hot off the presses from Crosley, aka Modern Marketing Concepts. And I am excited to check it out. We have reviewed the 2nd gen Cruiser, and we never reviewed the original one, but this is legendary, you guys. It is because of this turntable, this record player right here, that the vinyl resurgence exists. Love them or hate them, it's because of Crosley that you can walk into Walmart and Target today and buy a vinyl record. It's just the way it is, point blank. And I can already sense the phone warming up with all people jumping in with their thumbs, tapping like crazy. Please stay away from these things. These will destroy your records. These are terrible. It's the worst thing ever to happen in vinyl record history. It'll destroy. Well, we're going to try and prove or disprove that today. We're going to run some tests, and we're going to tear it down. Plus, I'm going to do something that is probably the most often asked question I get on a suitcase player, specifically the Crosley Cruiser. What about me connecting it to bigger speakers? Will that make it sound better? Because these don't sound as good as a higher end system. But I would argue they are not intended to sound as good as a higher end system. And you may be saying to yourself, what are you talking about? Why wouldn't it sound as good as a high end system? Here's our DC power supply. And I'm just going to sort of talk as we unbox here. I'm going to make this an efficient video. By the way, if you are new here, as I suspect you might be, because of the fact that this is kind of a hot topic, and I feel like the YouTube algorithm just might serve it up to some people that haven't seen our content before. Hit subscribe. We review record players and records, everything from suitcase players all the way up to $800 sort of mid-range turntables. We do it all here on Record-ology. By the way, if you want to join us for our daily Vlogmas show, this is going to be our 3rd year doing it. However, it's not going to be here on Record-ology. It's on my wife's channel, who we affectionately call Mrs. Record-ology. But on her channel, I'll put a link in the description below. It's called Beyond the Purple Suitcase, sort of a travel and lifestyle blog style show. And we're going to be doing daily Vlogmas shows starting December 1st all the way through Christmas. So if you like our Vlogmas shows in the past, go over there and subscribe. In fact, you know what? Hit pause right now. Do it before you forget. Hit subscribe. Beyond the Purple Suitcase. It's going to be awesome. We're going to check out lighting displays, events, all sort of Christmas stuff every single day. All right, here's the warranty. And we're going to unpack that in a minute, but let's look and see, what you get in here. This is going to be the manual. So if you want to hold on to that, do so. I would recommend doing that. On here we have a 100th anniversary card. Now, Crosley is a very interesting company. They had a past life and were very famous for making everything from radios to vehicles. And in ensuing years, the company has been revived under the stewardship of Modern Marketing Concepts. And through that through that ownership, they have really blossomed into the company they are today And again, if you want to find a record player, this is the one that's on every street corner. Now, some of you may be saying, that's terrible. You shouldn't have that. You should throw those away. Those are the worst thing ever. You know, that's terrible. There are a lot of people on YouTube especially that are seemingly trying as hard as they can to discourage newcomers from vinyl records, which is a hobby, by the way. We're not saving the world. This is a hobby. Let's keep it in perspective. You know what I mean? Some people take this stuff so seriously, they literally get extremely angry, extremely angry, which in my opinion is not justified. But the second you mention Crosley, whether it's the partnership project, the C10 with Project, or the entry-level cruiser record player like this one, they instantly assume that Crosley had this nefarious scheme to ruin your records and to get, their products infiltrated around the world. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life. Absolutely, completely, utterly false. So let's talk about this cruiser for a minute. So the cruiser is a product that is manufactured in China. Crosley does a lot of their design work here in the United States, just like Apple. Designed in the United States, built in China. Just like the phone you are probably holding right now, or the TV that you are watching right this second, or even the laptop that you are looking at this video on. That is a very common practice. Some of the products are OEM products, some of them are, designed here, and there's a range. I'm not saying that everything Crosley does is perfect. There's been some duds. We've reviewed everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, and otherwise, and we call it like we see it. And the same thing with this. If this is garbage, we're going to call it like we see it, and if it's good, we're going to call it like we see it. This is an interesting finish, by the way. It's like a denim. These are available in every color, pattern, fabric, theme, design, under the sun. That is amazing. I thought that was just going to be like a vinyl wrap, but it's like covered in denim. That is a very interesting thing. Also, another misnomer is that Crosley is making all sorts of suitcase players under alternate brands. And again, part of their nefarious scheme, they're trying to infiltrate the world with their Victrola branded turntables and their, every brand you can imagine. Well, that's completely false. Victrola, aka Innovative Technology, and Crosley, aka Modern Marketing, completely separate companies. They don't even source their suitcase players from the same people. They don't even source their parts from the same companies. It's just a lot of misinformation out there. Let's take a look at the back, by the way. You do have the ability to hook up to external audio, so we're going to try that. Assumedly, the sound on this is going to be limited in quality. So what we're going to do is we are going to test out whether or not hooking this up to a stereo makes a big difference. You also will see on there we have an aux in, so you can connect an audio device through like a headphone jack. And then the power, it is a 5-volt unit. Runs on DC power. One thing that I don't think I've seen a suitcase player do it yet, but I wish they would put feet back here. That way you can position it like that and it doesn't, wobble on the hinges. It does have feet on the bottom. Need to add them to the back. I always have thought that, and they never do it. All right, so there is the label right there. Now, this third generation, you may be saying, what is the difference between a first, second, and third generation cruiser? This one adds Bluetooth out. Now, the second anybody sees Bluetooth on anything, they're like, oh, I can stream it to my speaker. Well, most of the time, and even in previous suitcase models, the Bluetooth meant that you could connect your phone and hear your phone's audio on these speakers. It didn't mean that it was sending any Bluetooth out. This one, however, the third generation now transmits Bluetooth. So in addition to connecting it to external speakers, we can hear the audio through a Bluetooth speaker, which we'll test as well. All right, big reveal. Interesting. So they don't have the Crosley branding in the lid. It still has that same fabric. That is really cool looking. I love that. Got metal speaker grills here. That same fabric. And again, any color, any pattern, everything from a British flag to Star Wars to the Beatles to Charlie Brown, Mickey Mouse. There is, Crosley is brilliant at licensing. So they have licensed and partnered with a lot of really cool intellectual properties and brands to bring you some cool theming. So let's take a look and talk through this record player we have right in front of us. Okay, so This mechanism will be familiar to a lot of people, especially people that have watched this channel, as our channel is designed and specifically targeted towards the entry level. Even though we've reviewed some stuff that's in the $500, $600, $700, $800 range, our real bread and butter is down here at the entry level, because this product is designed to meet people at the beginning of their journey. The one argument that audiophiles have that I concede to is that if a newcomer to vinyl goes with the product that's entry level and is unimpressed with the sound quality, they may write off the entire vinyl thing as not interesting and not pursue it. I agree that could possibly happen, because this product is not going to sound as good. I don't even need to turn it on. It's not going to sound as good as a higher end turntable. Once you get into the $150, even $100 range with like an Audio-Technica LP60, once you get up to that level, which is a great starting point if you want audio quality, once you get to that point, you're going to notice improved sound quality. A lot of it has to do with the cartridge. This is a ceramic versus a magnetic. We've done shows about that. We've done over 800 shows. Go check out our shows and see what we've compared everything. Sound tests, talked about why these sound the way they do versus the other type. But this product is targeted towards somebody who is just starting out. And it works as a gateway. And I hate using that word because I don't like the association with like a gateway drug. But it starts as a gateway to getting people going on their journey of vinyl records. Because what most of the time happens is people say, this is cool. I'm having fun with this, but I want to take it to the next level. And so many people are like, this is where we got started. Plus, for kids and for people that are very casual, people that don't want to invest in a bunch of equipment, don't have any sound systems, don't have any speakers, don't have a stereo, this is everything in one. It's got the amplifier, the record player, the speakers, Bluetooth connectivity, headphone jack. Everything is in this little package that I can carry around, and it works, and it's functional. So there you go. Now, what do we got here? So it's a 3-speed turntable, so it'll spin 33 RPM records. That's a typical vinyl 12-inch record for the most part. 7-inch records, which are often 45. It's got an adapter for that. And I'm really trying not to go into educational mode on this, because I have this tendency to do like educational reviews versus just like I'm reviewing it. I can't help not, describe what I'm seeing. And then it also does 78. So like old shellac records. From a size comparison or size standpoint, it'll handle 12-inch records all the way down. Now, if you're playing, I'm going to look at this cartridge again. This is a Chuo Denshi type of clone cartridge. If you see one with a red tip like this, about 90% of the time it indicates it's a ceramic. And ceramic isn't the needle. The needle is diamond or most likely sapphire. The needle or the cartridge technology, what's up in the actual cartridge is ceramic. So it kind of works like a quartz watch, where when you bend the quartz, when you introduce mechanical movement, in this case it would be the groove of a record, that quartz bends and creates an electrical signal. That's it. It's bare bones, how a ceramic cartridge works. And we're going to look at that in a little bit more detail as well. Higher end units use what's called a magnetic cartridge. And a magnetic cartridge works by moving magnets against a coil. It's a different technology. Why do they use this? It's because the ceramic cartridge is very cheap to manufacture, and that obviously increases profit margins. But for the entry-level person, the 16-year-old walking into Kohl's and saying, hey, cool, records, I want to get into records. Wasn't thinking about buying a record player that day, but walks out with their first record player. Or somebody who, just is having that impulse buy, somebody who's just getting started, they don't know what a magnetic cartridge is, and they don't care. So so many times it's like, why don't you put a magnetic cartridge on this and it would be perfect? Because it's not designed for that. If you put a magnetic cartridge on this, first of all, you couldn't sell it for the price that they sell it. It would be a little bit more. Then you would have the problem where people wouldn't recognize it. So there's no value add. If you want a suitcase player with a magnetic cartridge, they do exist. Crosley makes some amazing ones. But that's a step above. That's like a next level kind of deal. So that's why they will always have the ceramics on these suitcase players. Let's take a look at some of these features. So there's the Bluetooth switch. So again, it will receive Bluetooth, hook it up to your phone, listen to your music, streaming from Spotify or whatever on the speakers, and it will send the Bluetooth audio of the record spinning and playing to your Bluetooth speakers or headphones or earbuds. Yes, you can connect your Apple AirPods to this. That's pretty cool. Pitch control, which means that you're controlling the speed, so up or down. When you change the speed of a record player, it makes a change in the pitch, and that's why it's called a pitch control. So if the voices are a little too high, they're not sounding quite accurate, you can bring that pitch down. That's actually a good feature to have. Not a lot of suitcase players have that. And then the on and off headphone jack as well. We already looked at the back. Couple of little switches down there. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump the tripod. We have auto stop. That means when the record is finished playing, it will automatically stop spinning or not, depending on what you want, and a speed selector switch. Now, these tone arms, so again, a common sort of BSR clone type of mechanism, is a spring-loaded counterbalance there. You'll notice the lift shelf here, this guy right here. And by the way, the fact that this has a cueing lever and a lift is a good thing. For people with shaky hands like myself, that is needed. This is just a plastic shelf. Higher end ones sometimes have rubber on there, but for what we're doing here, it's fine. I mean, it wouldn't offer us any benefit to have this be rubber. If your records are skipping on a suitcase player, and I've done videos about this, just push down on this. Oftentimes it doesn't lower all the way out of the way, and so it's kind of hanging up on there, causing the record to skip. So that's a little pro tip for you. By the way, the cost savings of using the ceramic is not just about the cartridge itself, it's about the need or lack thereof of a preamp. This technology, a ceramic cartridge, outputs line level voltage, which is what you're connecting when you're connecting audio jacks into a stereo system. Like anytime you see those guys coming out of a piece of equipment, like a VCR, DVD player, stereo, CD player, etc., is going to be line level. And that's just the amount of electricity, the amount of voltage that's being used on that signal. So this is great because what's coming off of this head shell, off of this cartridge, is already line level. No amplification needed. With the higher end cartridge, a magnetic, they require what's called a preamplifier. And the preamplifier is another circuit they need to put in these. So there's cost involved in doing that. By the way, something that I find interesting, there's no electricity being sent to the cartridge. The cartridge generates voltage. And it's a transducer, which means it turns mechanical movement into electrical signal. So its movement, bending that ceramic rod, is what's generating the signal. It is not like an amplified sort of, electrically charged thing. It is literally, this is where it's coming from. It is sending. It is not receiving anything. Okay, I find that interesting. All right, continuing the review here, I want to focus on this piece right here. It's important that this is straight. Sometimes these get twisted. This one, there's a little bit of movement in here all the way back to this. That's pretty typical for this type of mechanism. That's not a red flag for this type of a system. And again, for those of you that are telling me right now in the comments that, this is crap and I should just focus my life on a Technics $1,200, $1,000 turntable, this is not, nor ever will be, designed to compete, replace, and this is a different world. This is a consumer product that's designed for the entry level, the beginner market. It's designed to be fun, which it's okay to be fun. It's okay to have fun. It's okay that it looks cool. And we've done shows about, are you into records for the novelty, for the convenience, for the fun aspect? Then the suitcase player is right up your alley. So are all-in-ones, like wooden all-in-ones. If you only care about sound quality, then skip this. It's not designed for that. If you're interested in getting the best sound out of a record, not going to happen with this. It's not designed for that, okay? It's like comparing a go-kart to a race car. They both physically move. They both can get you from point A to point B, but the go-kart is not designed nor will ever do what a race car can do. See what I mean? But they both serve a market. Because there's race cars doesn't eliminate the need or the market for a go-kart or the fun of a go-kart, and vice versa. That's a good analogy. I just came up with that out of the thin blue air, clear blue air. So I'm seeing a little bit of a red flag. Now, do you see that little thing sticking down underneath the cartridge there? That's called a cantilever. Now, let's go ahead and pop this guy off. This red piece right here is the needle assembly. And I've done videos on how to replace these, but basically you just get your fingernail on the front edge. This one is being stubborn, so I'm gonna have to do it the right way. I'm gonna have to put the screwdriver in that little opening and then ratchet it down. Sometimes there's a little bit of leverage. You can just do it with your thumbnail. So it'll hinge off and then you can sort of just pull it off like that. So this piece, this black piece in here is the cartridge. And then this is the head shell that holds the cartridge. And if you look in the back, you'll see wires connecting it. So yeah, that's how you can replace these, by the way, although I've never needed to do that. We've done a show about how to do that, but you could technically do that. What I really want to show you though is the needle itself, which is in this housing. Now that red piece in the middle that sort of sticks out is called a cantilever. And see if I can, oops. Sorry for my super dry skin. But yeah, this shaft is a cantilever, and this needs to move back and forth up and down as it rides the groove. This should be a metal piece, and the higher end ones are. And then instead of having this little thin piece of plastic back here where it sort of hinges, that should be a rubberized piece. So this is the bottom of the barrel stylus. Okay. Also, kind of hard to see, but there's a little reddish tint. There's the needle or the stylus. It is going to be a bonded stylus, meaning that the little part you see sticking up is not the needle itself. The needle is a tiny microscopic chip of sapphire or ruby at the tip of that metal point. So it is a bonded, meaning it's glued on there, stylus. You're not going to find a nude stylus on something of this level. Nude would be that whole piece is the diamond itself or the sapphire. Now, assuming that the diamond, or excuse me, sapphire, because this will be sapphire, assuming that the jewel is properly bonded and aligned, there will be no damage caused by the needle. The needle, the cartridge, none of that would cause damage or wear. By the way, putting this back on, the reverse process, just put the back piece in and then snap the front. It's as simple as that. So the difference between the ruby or sapphire stylus versus the diamond is just that the diamond will last longer. It's not going to, diamond is a harder substance, so it's going to last longer than a ruby tip. A ruby tip is going to be good for, they say, about 100 sides of a record. So playing 50 records front to back. I personally can get way more. It's kind of like changing your oil every 3,000 miles. You're either one of those people that does or realizes you don't really have to. Assuming you're not having a vehicle warranty you need to maintain. But you know what I mean? It's kind of like that. I think you can go way beyond that. If you have a diamond stylus on there, 1,000. It's amazingly more durable. But that's not a big surprise considering a diamond is the hardest substance known to man, right? So that makes sense. So upgrade it if you want. It's not going to change your sound quality that much. So there you go. First thing I want to do is look at the records. You're like 20 minutes into this. What are you talking about first thing to do? I want to check out the speed. Now we have a pitch control, which is huge. That's good. So what we want to do is make sure that the speeds, the 3 speeds that this record player has, are accurate. So we're going to rotate this over, which is how the record player knows that it's on. And we are going to be looking at these inner 3 bands right here. That's because we are in the United States and we're on 60 hertz power. If you were someplace in the world with 50 hertz power, these 3 bands would be yours, but we're looking at these 3. Why are there 3 bands? Because there's 3 speeds to the record. Now the trick with this is we have a lot of daylight spilling in right now. The best thing is to actually use the incandescent light or internal light source that's on the same power supply as the record player. So I'm going to close the windows, turn on the inside lights, and zoom in, and we're going to check out those 3 speeds. And then I'm going to use the speed selector switch here to move between those 3 to test them out. Again, having the pitch control is huge because if we discover a problem, we don't have to go make adjustments to the motor pots, which you can do. And we're going to look at this because we're going to tear it all down. But you can make your speed adjustment right here, and that's super awesome. So, all right, let me go ahead and kill the white outdoor lighting, and we'll take a closer look at this. Actually, having worked in television for 25 years, I can tell you that outdoor light is more blue than anything else. Okay, so we're going to start with this band. Oops, this band right here. This is 33 RPM. And you'll notice what seems like a series of soft focus black lines or white lines, depending on how you look at it, marching to the left. Those should be static. They should be stationary. So this tells us that they're moving to the left means it's spinning a little fast. So using that pitch knob off camera, I'm going to rotate it slower, and you'll see it's kind of hard with the camera shutter. It looks very faint, but you'll notice that these lines here are going to slow down, specifically on this one right here. Slow down to a stop, and that means that we're right at 33. You'll notice that it's kind of moving back and forth, back and forth. That's because all motors have inconsistencies. That you're not going to be able to tell that difference in terms of sound, that little movement back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Higher end turntables will be quartz locked, so they will be, you know, deadlocked solid. But again, you're not going to notice the difference, okay? Now we're flipping it to 45 RPM. That's the next band. That's this guy right here. Typically, these follow suit with each other. So if one's fast, they're all fast. This one is marching to the right, so it's a little slow. So I'm moving that pitch control a little faster, and I've stilled that. Your best judge in speed, now 78, the top band, is just sound. What sounds the best? You can hear that motor noise. Listen to that. Pretty silent motor until you get up to 78 RPM. Cool. All right, I feel like the speed is actually calibrated pretty dang good. Now let's talk about how and why people claim these damage your records. We're going to use a digital Stylus tracking force gauge. I should mention some prices, by the way. We've reviewed all this stuff, so if you want to go back and watch a more thorough review how it works and you know what I think of it, check out those videos. There's a plethora. Again, subscribe. Join the family at Record-ology. Join the family. We do it all. We do 3 shows a week. We also have a members only program. So we do the regular shows, let's see, 2 times a week for the regular show, and then we do a 3rd show for members, exclusive chats and stuff. Join that. We got merch. We do TikTok. Definitely check out the description below. And don't forget to vote. Do you love the Cruiser? Do you hate the Cruiser? One way or another, I want everyone to vote. But anyway, so this is like a $10 thing. That strobe mat, I think, was about 20, 25 bucks. Replacement styli are a 3-pack for $6 on Amazon. But be careful, because there are different sizes. Even though that this may look the same as like a Victrola or some other brand, it may not be literally the same brand. So tracking force is the amount of pressure or weight that a stylus is pressing down on a record. And people say this is how it's damaging your records because it's putting too much weight. A vinyl record is designed to withstand, arguably, because everybody's got an opinion, people are so opinionated on this stuff, but in actuality, they're designed to withstand up to 9 grams of downforce. Higher end turntables and magnetics operate in the 1.5 gram to 2.5, 3.5, 4 grams tops kind of territory. A ceramic cartridge doesn't work like that. It requires 5 to 6 grams of downforce. That's sort of the sweet spot. Not going to damage your records. Will it wear them out faster? Yes, vinyl's pretty soft. This, even if it's working perfectly properly, and I don't know yet, haven't tested it, but if this tracks between 5 and 6 grams or thereby, or close to that, it's not going to damage your records, but it still will wear them out faster than a higher end turntable. It's just the facts of life. Not damaging, wearing, use. It's going to wear. It's a friction. You're dragging a diamond through soft plastic. So it's going to happen, okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and zero this bad boy out. If this is ringing in at 8 or 9, then I will be hesitant to put higher end vinyl on this record. All right, so we're going to lower the stylus. It's got a good soft descend. We're going to push this down so it's not hanging up. And we have tapped out. However, let not your heart be troubled, because this is only a 5 gram gauge. And in order to measure things above 5 grams, what we need to do is put a 5 gram weight on there, zero out said scale, remove the weight, zero that out, okay, remove the weight, come on, okay, so we're zeroed out. It's going to go back to -5, and what we're going to need to do now is add 5 to whatever we get. So if it says 2, add 5, it's really 7. See what I mean? That's how you can measure over 5 grams. So we knew it was going to be over 5 because he's tracked 5 to 6 grams-ish, hopefully. If we're in the 7, 8, 9 range, that's not ideal. Okay, so we're going to kind of speed this up a little bit here. All right, 0.9. We'll round it up to 1 gram. So 1 plus 5 is 6. And what did I say earlier? 5 to 6 grams. This is right where it needs to be. A ceramic cartridge cannot function at 1 to 2 grams. And also, for those of you that say, I know how to fix my skipping record problem, I'll just put some nickels on there. 1 penny is like 2.5 grams. So you're going, don't do that. That's a bad idea. We did a show on how to fix skipping records, and it was all about that lift shelf in the back. Could you physically get it to work? Yes. Should you? No. Because you can damage your records. That is a thing. So you don't want to do that. So this is tracking 6 grams. Perfecto. Now, how does the darn thing sound? Let's find out. So we're going to put a record on next. Okay, so this is a mono video, by the way. So even though this is a stereo turntable, you're only going to hear mono sound. And that's fine. You're not going to get much of a stereo spread on speakers that are 8 inches to each other unless you put your head, 4 inches in front of the unit. So the stereo effect will be enjoyed best through a set of headphones or on an external sound system. What we're going to do now is test the sound, and we're also going to test, whether 6 grams is going to carve up my record. This record's modulation on this area, I've used it as a test before over here, but this track is in pretty good condition. So see how that modulation looks pretty clean. It's a little dusty, but it'll get the job done. We're going to see if a gray line starts forming. So in addition to listening to the sound, we're going to watch and see if this thing's carving up our record like they say. And it is what it is, guys. I'm not going to hide anything. I'm not going to spin it one way or another. It's either going to carve it or not, which could be because of a poorly bonded chip of jewel, or it could be that this record doesn't like 6 grams of downforce. One more topic really quickly on the Stylus, and we'll stop talking about that. This is a rounded conical stylus. So the tip of the needle is a rounded circular shape. Higher end units are going to use ellipticals. They're going to use Shibata, different shape stylus. So this one rides pretty high up in the groove. All right, let us turn on the turntable. And when it comes to sound quality on these, the biggest issue usually isn't the size of the speakers, because you can make really good sound from really small speakers. It's usually that the audio, the impedance is mismatched in the circuitry, which you can't really remedy on the unit unless you get in there at the circuit board level. So if it sounds tinny, if it sounds like there's no bass, it's an impedance mismatch and there's nothing you can do about it. All right, let us lower the stylus. It's got a nice slow descend, which is great. And then we're going to push the thing out of the way so it doesn't hang up and give it a listen. Okay, that's 78 RPM. That's the wrong speed. Okay, so I would say this is impedance mismatched. The sound is tinny, it's small, and it's smaller than it should be, but again, it's an impedance issue. I don't see any damage, which is good, so there's not going to be any damage from this. 6 grams is like I said, a proper tracking force for this type of cartridge, but the speaker, you're going to put this on and your phone's speaker may sound a little better than this. I'm telling you, it's thin, it's tinny. It's functional for spoken word, for kids, for just like quiet background noise, for fun, no problem at all. If you're like, dude, I want to get into vinyl and enjoy the sound quality, this isn't the one. And you're going to say, well, wait, what about hooking up bigger speakers? We're going to do that in a minute. But first, let's test out the Bluetooth out functionality. Hook this up to a nice Bluetooth speaker and see what it sounds like. Okay, so I've got this wonderful, beautiful Crosley octave speaker that my wife allowed me to take out of her office for this video. It is an amazing, probably the best Bluetooth speaker I've ever listened to. Awesome, awesome speaker. Anyway, I've got it connected via Bluetooth right now, and you heard what it sounded like before, right, with those speakers? Let's compare and contrast, guys. Here it is over this Bluetooth speaker. definitely better. Actually better than I thought it was going to be. So that's a cool feature, you guys. That is a cool feature. I'm changing my mind right now because I thought it would just amplify that same sort of mismatched impedance that we had on the speakers. But that sounds good to my ears. That sounded bassier, fuller, richer. I feel that the ceramic cartridge is still rather lo-fi. I don't know if I would go so far as to say this is a high fidelity, but at the same time, it's definitely improved. Now what I want to do is hook it up to my best speakers with the audio output on the back. Okay guys, welcome into the inner sanctum of Record-ology, where there's way too much equipment in way too small of a space. Right now I've got the aforementioned Crosley Cruiser connected to a pair of beautiful Fluence speakers, and we're going to test out the sound quality of the built-in speakers versus the nice speakers using the RCA outputs, which are connected. Well, another question that comes up is, when I connect the speakers, will the built-in ones shut off or will they stay connected? Well, let's find out. So again, the microphone is in the room. This is not a direct feed. This is not a direct feed sort of a turntable. This is a, what are you experiencing? So your ears are in the room with me, albeit in mono. So here we go. Built-in speakers as a point of reference. By the way, this is Enoch Light and his orchestra, if you like this music. This is a quadraphonic record, by the way. I can hear it now. Why do you play a quadraphonic record? Didn't damage it, guys. And these are some of the most gentle, easily scratched records. So this is a great example. All right, so built-in speakers. And now I'm going to turn on the nice speakers. Great timing, the song's fading out. But you could hear it was definitely better. I think the Bluetooth out sounded better than this direct feed output. And to answer the question, the built-in speakers don't shut off unless you turn them off, and then you still have the line output on the external. It's listenable, guys. Okay, so to my ears, and again, this is, everything's open to, interpretation, but from what I can hear, it is listenable. A ceramic cartridge has a harshness. My day-to-day turntable uses, pay no attention to that brand name right there. We're not talking about those guys today. My day-to-day driver uses a magnetic cartridge, so I'm used to that kind of warmer, richer sound. This ceramic, and any ceramic, by design, is going to have a harsher kind of, harsher sound. You know what I mean? It's going to be a harsher sound. That is definitely reflected in what I'm hearing here. The bigger speakers do amplify everything. So a little more bass, a little more fidelity. Stereo separation is minimal. So you're not getting a very wide sound stage in the room. You're not getting any of it over the video because the mono mic. But I'm not hearing this is a very spacious sounding sound stage on this record because it's quadraphonic. I am getting separation left and right, but it's not huge. So again, this is designed for these little speakers or a Bluetooth speaker. I think it'd be fine for that. I actually am impressed with this guy. I think it's doing what it's supposed to do, functioning as it's designed very well. I wish there was an impedance match on the speakers that are built in, so it sounded a little better. But even, suitcase players with properly matched impedance, it's not like a huge game changer. It helps it. It helps fill out the sound a bit. So I definitely would recommend this based on everything. I have no problem. Doesn't wreck anything. Doesn't damage anything. It functions wonderfully. And I was really impressed with that Bluetooth out sound quality. So now let's tear this thing apart. My wife's like, "Are you sure you want to take it apart? It's working." And I'm like, "Of course. Why not?" If you're new here, I don't have the greatest reputation of, fixing things and working on things. Sometimes it works great. Sometimes it's ruined beyond belief. All right, so this circlip right here, this little clip holds it onto the spindle. There's a little notch down there. Very easy to lose. Hold on to those. Don't put it down on like a granite countertop that's like speckled black and white because you'll never see it again. Then you can lift the platter. By the way, this whole area is suspension. Some people get concerned about that. Is it supposed to be like that? That's to give it some sound isolation. So I'm going to go ahead and lift up on the platter. It is a belt-driven turntable, so plastic platter, ABS plastic with an inner sub-platter, and that's where the belt goes around. The belt is kind of like a rubber band, but not exactly. It's not as stretchy, so you can't really substitute. It would seem to make sense that you can substitute this, but it doesn't really work that way. So you have to use a real band. Are you ever going to need to replace this band? I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. But basically, it goes around that sub-platter and then connects here to the motor shaft. And this is that JYK, probably, we'll find out in a minute, branded 3-position motor. Now, one thing that I never do, and everybody always mentions it, is if you put this, when you put this back on, you can actually position the belt on this little plastic tab right here, so that when you position it down, it holds it and stretches it over that. It really helps. So terrible about doing that. But by the way, another thing is people will say, "Why is that just hard plastic? Is that going to scratch your record?" No, because it has these little rubber nubs here. And they do actually make miniature platter mats, but for this level of turntable, guys, 3 points of position is the best for stability. Yes, it's better than 4 points. A 3-legged ladder is highly stable compared to a 4-legged one, although somewhat terrifying to use sometimes. When I was in television, we had these 10-foot 3-legged ladders that we took these like 100-pound Fresnel lights off with. It was actually scary. But it actually is a fact that 3 points of contact is the best. So 3 points of contact, and that's that. So there's going to be a set of screws going around this flat black surface. This is called a plinth. And this is MDF. It's made out of MDF, which is a multi-density fiberboard. And same thing with this. And this is wrapped in either vinyl or in this case a fabric. Think of it, it's kind of like a plywood. It's basically a bunch of sawdust that's glued together and then dried in. It's the spam of wood. Okay? They take all the chips and the powder and the dust and they glue it into something new, and this is a loaf of wood. Okay? It's fine. Actually, MDF is even on higher end turntables is pretty well sought after. So off camera, so I don't bore you, I'm going to remove the screws, and then together we're going to lift off the plinth and see what's inside. This is something you don't want to do any more than you have to, and you never have to, so you'll never have to do this. Just watch this video. Anytime you're wondering, hey, what's inside my suitcase player, my Crosley Cruiser, it is connected with 4 simple wood screws, and you may be saying machine screws or wood screws. These are wood screws. You can tell by the point and the sort of the serrated threading there. That's because it literally screws into the wood. There's no metal receptacle on the other end. So what that means is there's a finite amount of times that you can screw that in and out without it just, being totally stripped out. So you don't want to do that a lot. Okay, unplugged. And again, don't ever do this. This voids your warranty and all that stuff. You don't want to do that. So we've got it removed, and we're just going to pull the plinth up and away. And most of the action is going to be underneath there. But before we look under there, let's kind of look at the cabinet. And what do we see here? So we see the unmasked, uncovered MDF material. This is interesting. It looks like the glue has been sort of sprayed in. I'm really happy to see that I was wrong in what I just said. There are receptacles. We'll take a closer look at that for this instead of just, screwed into the wood. So that is a higher end thing. Here's the board that has the audio out, the aux in, and the power module as well. It's all connected on this wire braid, which is zip tied in, connected to the speakers. We'll look at that, and then the bottom of this board. We'll look at that all in detail. But first, let's look at that in the back. So there's a closer look at that board. I mean, it is what it is. It's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot going on back there. I want to look over here in the corner. I thought this was interesting. I've never seen one of these before. It's like they've glued in these plastic receptacles, and I think that that's actually, I was going to say it's metal, but I think that is plastic. I could be wrong, but I think that's a plastic sleeve in there. So that's going to be better than, just having it drill down into the wood itself. So what about the speakers? Let's look at this. So here's the speaker itself. That's actually a fairly beefy magnet considering the size of the speaker. It looks like this is a 3-watt speaker at 4 ohms, and it is what it is. I mean, it's just a small speaker. The sound could be better from this speaker if the impedance were properly matched. Besides that, you guys, the cabinet is pretty hollow, pretty empty. Everything is underneath the plinth. So I'm going to very carefully flip that over now. Okay, guys, so here is the underside of the plinth. This is where the bulk of the materials are located in terms of this record player. So here is the motor. This is a brand I've never heard of, so that's kind of interesting. But you'll notice that there's 2 pots there, and it looks like they've been punctured already. So that means somebody's stuck their screwdriver in there in the factory to tweak the speed. And you may be saying, wait a minute, it's 2-position or a 2-speed motor, a high speed and a low speed, 33 and 45. How do you do 78? Well, that requires some circuitry, but that's fairly common. You can get that 3rd speed out of this 2-speed motor. But kind of interesting, these should be completely virgin foam pads, but you have to stab through them to get down to the actual trim pot. So in the factory, and it's not a big deal. Who cares? You're never going to see this. You know what I mean? You should never see this. Don't look here. There's nothing to see here. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, and that's just what that is. So off-brand motor, or a brand I haven't heard of. It's not a JYK. It's not a Sankyo. Up here, this is the bottom of the tone arm mount. So this is, where it's swiveling in the back. You'll see the wires, the braid there coming off. Those are literally the wires from the back of the cartridge. Again, there's no electricity being sent down to the cartridge. It's only coming from it because that transducer, which is the cartridge, same basic premise as like a microphone, is generating voltage, which comes in here. This piece right here houses an angled sensor, and it basically is the auto start. So when you rotate the tone arm, this senses the position of the tone arm and spins that record player up. Right here, this module looks like it's a power relay, perhaps. We've got this, let's see, what do we got here? So we got the motor coming into this here. We've got the sensor coming into it here. I'm not 100% sure all that does, but the main board is right here. Now this is going to have the amplification. So there's an amplifier chip on there. You got a capacitor on there. The Bluetooth modules are going to be on there, both the transmit and receive. This is really the brains of the board. Let's see if we can get a closer look. There is the main board. And people will cry foul at the fact that there is, glue used to hold stuff together, but it does the job. You know what I mean? There's not a good reason other than people say, oh, that means it's cheap. And yeah, it is, cheap and quick to produce, but at the same time, in order to get the price of these things as low as they are, you have to have efficiencies in producing it. People don't like that. They want you to spend every dime on building the thing. Well, it's a company. It's not a charity. You know what I mean? They're building a product that they need to make a profit on. So you may call it cutting corners, but in reality, it's simply, driving efficiency because it has to function, which we've demonstrated does just fine. And if in order to do that, they can use some glue versus, some hardware underneath, who cares? There's no reason why that's a bad thing. It makes it work, and it helps the price stay low for them, which means you pay less. Because if you're paying a good price for something like this, even at an entry-level quality standard, that's going to be more justifiable than this being so expensive because they, used unnecessary components. All right, guys, I think we've about completed this. Thank you so much for watching. And do not forget, please don't forget to go over to Beyond the Purple Suitcase and subscribe today for all the awesome content we do over there. It's my wife's channel. She completely runs the show. Kind of a surprise. Secret here, she runs the show too. She's the boss behind the scenes, both in my life and on YouTube. But her channel is really cool because she does a bunch of reviews, travel stuff, and over there she's doing a daily Vlogmas show, which is going to be awesome. So normally what we do on this channel for Vlogmas is all going to be over there. Link in the description. Go check it out. Now, if you want to buy this thing, I'll have a link down below as well. I have no issue with it. I'm endorsing it. I think it's a great suitcase player. Okay, guys, that is going to do it for today. Thank you so much. Don't forget to check out the links in the description below. But that's going to do it for now. Happy record hunting. We'll see you next time.